Larry tried to kill me.
Yeah. I was so thoroughly disgusted.
I mean, think about it. Why does it make you special to do what you do?
Packers jumping around. They rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. Elliott can run inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line. My goodness.
Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground and still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
There's also Brian Clady and Rob Miller. Third and long 3. Going deep. Oh, and he's got Thomas. Goodbye. Touchdown.
Here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him 3 to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first play of overtime.
Hey!
I think my ears are ringing.
That's kind of the whole point, though, wasn't it? Welcome to the 5280 podcast. I am Mundungus Creevey, along with my co-host Glenn Hauser, Cameron Parker, and we're going to do our best to talk everything Broncos. But I'll tell you, it's getting tougher and tougher by the week because we still suck. We don't suck as much, but we kind of do because we had to get rid of our head coach to not suck as much.
I don't know. I was gonna say, yeah, it's definitely been, bad, and the podcast, the content start running together, But I mean, at the same time, like and this is sad reality, but it's like when you do move on from a coach, you at least jumpstart the process of a potential exciting offseason of what can be. So I don't know. I'm kind of in the boat of like, this is going to be a really exciting offseason, and I know we'll talk about it even further, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm super, super excited, even though we got like our final week and everything, but I'm super excited about what this offseason is going to be.
Yeah. And I did want to bring up this comment by Travis because we did want to start off talking about Damar Hamlin. I don't know if you guys were watching the Bengals and the Bills game last night, but there was a situation where Damar Hamlin made a tackle, and then it turned up being some serious medical issue that happened. I'm not going to go into the whole thing because, trying to respect as much as I can. But it turned out to be pretty serious. He ended up needing some serious medical intervention just to make it back to the hospital. I'm told that he is in the ICU. He is not breathing on his own. He has a tube, but his breathing is getting better. So it looks like he's starting to take an upward tick. But our thoughts and our prayers go out to him, his family, his teammates, his coaches, the front offices of the Bills, everybody that was affected on the Bengals team, anybody in the NFL that was affected, all the current former players. You're never really prepared for something like that. You're prepared to take some abuse because of, the job that you have, the sport you're playing, but something like that is not something that you should ever have to get used to seeing.
Yeah.
And so then the question becomes, once some time has passed, like what happens from here? Like, is the NFL going to take a stance on maybe more chest protection? Is it going to, start putting and again, like the game is secondary, but are they going to replay the game? Are Like what's going to happen from this point?
So real quick, there was a tweet out. I want to say about 4:45 Mountain Time, my time, by @4 Josh Reed. He's the WIVB sports director down there, and he said that he just spoke with Hamlin's uncle, and DeMar was originally on 100% oxygen, and is now down to 50%. And he says that the family's hanging in there, and he and I don't know if he means Hamlin, but he thanked the Bills fans and Bengals fans and asked for continued prayers. So that's good news.
You know, it's and then you have to think of like just even the mental state of the players that were there to witness it. I mean, it was just such an incredible turn of events. Even the fact that he got to his feet and then fell backwards seconds later after he even adjusted his face mask. And, you know, when you saw, and that's really where the seriousness was so evident in the reactions of the players from both teams, the coaches from both teams, the medical staffs working together. I think there were 10 doctors on the field. It's a scary thing. And Mike, you mentioned like former players. You know, I was messaging with a player who was in the league for a long time, and he even said that it was hard for him. He was watching with his family. It was hard for them to see, you know, his wife. I think he was married to the same person when he was playing. So it's got, you know, I'm sure it brought back some scary memories for her.
Yeah.
And he said he didn't sleep well last night, and you know, it's I think it's affected, you know, all of America. You know, it's nice that the GoFundMe is. I haven't even checked lately, but it was around $5 million last time I checked, which is a nice story. But I just
which is more than I thought, because last I checked it was around 2.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping that his brain is gonna be, and he's gonna be the same bubbly person, the person that everybody talks about, being just an incredible teammate, incredible guy in the community. The fact that he was a 4-star recruit in the Pittsburgh area and decided to go to play at Pitt. You know, there's just, I wasn't really familiar with him prior to last night, unfortunately, and just, you know, he seems like a very easy person to support. And here Ty gives an update: 5.1 million in the GoFundMe, and it was a toy drive from 2 years ago. It's really, it's going to mean a lot.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, you know. Well, first things, a huge shout out to all of the doctors, the first responders, the nurses, paramedics, team medical staff, whoever was out there. I know that they said that it took 10 seconds from the time that they noticed something was wrong to get to him and start working on him. So that's good. I'm glad. Again, like we sit here and we talk about concussions and torn ACLs and all these other injuries that are happening through the NFL. Like now you add something like this, and I know that we don't know exactly what it is. There are some people that have thoughts and you know, of what might have happened, but you would think that we're going to get a review of maybe a review, or maybe a change in medical policy or safety policy or safety standards to try to get, you know, better at padding the helmet when people hit the back of their head, or putting more padding on the chest, or, you know, more padding in the shoulder pads. Something. There has to be something that the NFL and anyone else who is involved in making that sort of thing better for the players involved, because the game is nothing without the players.
Yeah,
right. And Lee's comment that you just had pulled up, you know, about in the 70s and 80s when the guys, and they had the shoulder pads that were big, and they had the things on the arms and the big leg pads, and it's true, and the players were not in the shape and had the speed and the physical force that they do these days.
And
now we're stripping the guys down, and now they're even
and like back in the NFL, when the NFL first started, and they had like those leather helmets. Like I understand those were big guys, but compared to today, they're a lot, like their life is playing football and working out and getting bigger, faster, stronger. So the hits that they're taking are a lot more than what was taken in the past. And so you hope that the NFL is going to try to adjust to the intensity of those hits that they're taking.
Yeah, and it truly makes you, just queasy thinking about it in the standpoint of like the actual tackle itself was just a normal tackle. Like and it wasn't anything that was illegal or throwing Russell Wilson like a rag doll. I mean, it wasn't anything like that. We're talking about just a kind of a fluky situation that just happened, and unfortunately, this was the result that it is. So, to what you were talking about, gentlemen, I do think that there probably needs to be some sort of safety precaution with the, I would say first start with the chest area because that was the, that was the area where it certainly all occurred. But I it's just one of those situations where it's just you just feel sick to your stomach because it's just something that does not happen very often, and and so to see the outpouring support from all the fans and from the entire NFL was certainly great to see. I think that there were even some donations from Tom Brady, Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey donated $5,000 to the to his toy drive, and then Tom Brady I think donated $10,000. But yeah, it's just I tweeted late last night because me like thousands of others, I didn't get much sleep last night because I was thinking all about Damar Hamlin. But I just it made me wonder just how incredible of a move it was by both Sean McDermott and Zach Taylor to really just spearhead this thing and really meet at midfield and really just explain that we can't go on. Like we cannot continue this football game. And part of me does wonder with this game and the way it unfolded that it did take just a little bit longer than it needed to be for them to postpone this game. And I think that that's just another part of this. They certainly took care of it. They canceled the game, and who knows if it'll be played at a later time. But, I just think that it's one of those things like good on the coaches for, spearheading this thing and really helping also, save Damar's life. And so I just think that's one of those things like, it's just, you just can't script something like that. You just can't.
Yeah. And so then, obviously after talking about everything we just did with Damar and what happened with postponing the game, what goes on at this point? Like the game, does the game need to be played? I mean, like for me, it's like the first thing you do is you go to the teams, right? Do the teams want to play? And if they say no, write it up as a tie and then let the chips fall where they fall?
Yeah, I think what's hard is, and again, exactly, you would have to talk to the Bills and you would have to talk to the Bengals. But I would imagine, and guess we're not in the Bills locker room, we're not in the Bengals locker room, but I will say, I don't know how you play the game, like in a week or, in the final week of this. I don't know how you play the game because even if you play it 2 weeks from now, the Bengals and the Bills are still going to have that weight carrying over them, and they are not going to be in the right frame of mind 2 weeks from now, to be playing a game like that. So I would absolutely chalk it up as a tie and just move on. And especially, for the Buffalo Bills, they left Cincinnati to go home because they except for Stephon Diggs, who really showed as far as a good teammate that he was, to be there in the hospital, no cameras, no anything, and walk to the hospital to be there, with Damar Hamlin. But I mean, I don't know how you play that game.
Yeah, no, I guess Diggs took an Uber actually, or he took a ride share. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening, but I just keep checking for updates on Damar, and we'll we'll see how he's doing and how his teammates are doing. But
one of the things I thought was great about Hamlin, you guys were talking about his Pittsburgh, ties. As I was kind of scrolling through his Twitter profile, he always loved Pittsburgh, even with his time, with the Buffalo Bills. The roots of being from, Pittsburgh and everything was still there. And I think that there was even a moment where on game day or something like that, he was wearing Steelers, clothing. Like he was wearing Steelers clothing, just kind of proof that, the Pittsburgh ties are still running thin. So that just goes to show you, how much he loves and, cherishes the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're seeing some comments in here about, pushing playoffs back. And I've had the same thoughts. Again, I think the first move that you have to do is you have to talk to the teams. Let the teams decide for themselves whether they want to play or not. If they want to play, then I say, okay, let's move that game after week 18 or after this last game, right? So you push the playoffs back a week. And then instead of having the Pro Bowl right before the Super Bowl, you have the playoffs go right into the Super Bowl and then the Pro Bowl after the Super Bowl. I think that would make the most amount of sense. But again, talk to the teams first and let them decide what they want to do. I think that's the only respectful thing you could do at this point.
Yeah.
So, off of that,
yeah.
let's go ahead and dig into this this game we just had. Oh, and by the way, another shout out to Mario Vitanzi for the wardrobe that we're all wearing.
Totally unplanned.
Totally unplanned.
It was definitely unplanned, folks.
Thanks, Mario. It's great.
And it's not even laundry day. I mean, think about that.
Right?
Compliment.
The funniest thing is I was actually debating wearing the hoodie that Glenn has on. Like, so I'm glad I didn't.
Twins there.
Yeah.
Alex Valdez said we need to hire Alex Valdez as special coordinator because he's special.
Hope you're well, buddy.
That works.
He could be our trainer.
Mark says, "What's up? What's up?" Let's see here. Hey, Bubba Gump. He's one of the guys from our the neighborhood on Sundays. So,
San Antonio.
Are you guys as infatuated with Rosberg as I am? I love this guy. His answers to the media questions, like his demeanor on the sidelines, I love everything about him.
Yeah, I'll answer in that I'm enamored with him not as our next head coach, but as a part of the organization. I'm eating up these press conferences. The guy is extremely thoughtful. He passes credit around. I mean, even yesterday, he referenced like two players played in their first NFL game on Sunday. Like he even brought them up. It's just this guy's a real thoughtful guy. He's not trying to take credit for anything. He was saying, while these coaches out there are doing all the work, he goes, I was sitting on my deck drinking coffee when I get a phone call like out of the blue. It's I really like him, but I think the fact is that he's big on accountability. He's been there. He's a Super Bowl winner. He's been John Harbaugh's best friend for the last 30 years. He got special teams guru, and he wasn't afraid to make changes. And just even the fact that when he talked about Evero, and I know I'm rambling around about this, but in his opening press conference, he apologized for not bringing Ujiro up, and the fact that he had originally been offered the interim head coaching job, and then he just went and talked about the respect that he had and for him, and even making a decision. And I love this guy. I hope he's, because he was retired for 3 years. I'm hoping he's re-energized and would want to be part of a future staff here.
Yeah. It's one that he's definitely a no BS kind of guy. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't, he really just tells it like it is. But at the same time, he has a heart of gold. And I think that that's like the thing that is different. And at the same time, especially with where the Denver Broncos are, even though it's only, a few games, at this exact moment, this is exactly the kind of coach that the Denver Broncos had needed to right that kind of storm. And really, to take jumper cables to a team that had been truly down in the dumps. And, and so he's the kind of coach that really helped lit a fire under this team. In fact, I can honestly say that that was the best special teams performance that I think I've ever seen in the last, I don't know how many years. I mean, Tom McMahon would never. I mean, the guy in the game against the Kansas City Chiefs of all teams, we had a forced fumble, and some missed field goals. Actually, I think it was a blocked field goal by Uwama Uwazurike. So I mean, I saw more contributions on that special teams since the 2016 year. Since the 2016 year when they beat the New Orleans Saints, when Will Parks blocked the field goal Justin Simmons blocked the field goal and Will Parks ran in. And that's the only game that vividly runs in my brain as far as how impactful that game was special teams wise. But definitely bring him on. And if that game is any indication of who he is as a special teams coach, absolutely bring him on, keep him on staff. Mm-hmm. Make him a special teams coordinator, for this staff.
Boggins, you suck.
No, not Mr. Boggins.
Well, yeah, not Mr. Boggins. Well, and Glenn was talking about changes. I mean, his first game as head coach, you have Montreal Washington not taking the kicks or the punts. You have Albert Okwuegbunam on the field. We haven't seen him basically.
Who played well, by the way.
Yeah, he played well. You've got Chase Edmonds that gets put back on the team from IR instead of Lloyd Cushenberry, which with the offensive line struggles, you're like, huh? But it made sense. Because, I mean, Marlon Mack ended up going down. And Chase Edmonds, I thought he played pretty good too.
Mm-hmm.
He did.
Let's not forget the coup de grace, Mr. Twiddleless Thumbs on the sidelines. We have no idea what responsibility he has. Mr. Justin Outen calling plays.
I had no issues with any plays called.
It was great.
Yeah.
You know what's great? The camera set up in the coach's box and them celebrating after each play that they called that worked. It was so cool.
It worked. There were so many screens too.
We saw Chase Edmonds how he was intended to be. Mm-hmm. And he's still under contract for next year. So it's water, I swear. Normally it isn't, but okay.
Just to interrupt for a second, this is the coolest name I've ever seen. Comment a sick ass foo. Love it. That is great.
Yeah.
He was probably playing Odd Madden, and that was the play he was calling.
But the thing was that we also saw was Tim Jenkins even mentioned it in his breakdown. Like, this was the Russ we were intending to see as far as using his legs more. And I think that's the thing we never even saw at times, even the red zone. Like, you have a dual threat quarterback with the capability of, making your red zone offense much better. And so to see the ability there where you can use his legs as a true weapon for this team, I think will give the next head coach and offensive coordinator, at least some semblance of, okay, there's something to work with here. With Russ's ability. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when he scored that, what was it, an 18-yard touchdown run?
Yeah.
It seemed like he turned on the afterburners.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
rushing touchdowns.
And there were 3 or 4 tremendous blocks. I mean, that was an incredible team effort. The team looked different. The team felt different. You saw a coach flipping out on the refs on the sideline. You saw, coach fighting for what was right, because Russ did get absolutely body slammed on that last play, and that could have been easily a 15-yard penalty. I mean, that would have been so fun to see that through, and get the win. But we have one other opportunity. It's a home game next week, or this coming weekend, and you mentioned Alberto. Guy started off a little rusty, but what did he do to get in the doghouse all season? Right, Alex saw Washington. Yeah, he was inactive. Saw Alberto. Saw some fullback and Beck. Saw mobile Russ. I mean, Beck had an incredible catch where Russ threw it kind of low away from the defender, but the defender still had an opportunity to knock it down, and Beck caught that pass. That was fantastic. I mean,
well, and I think that, I don't know about you guys, but like when you look at some of the games when the offense has been at its best, it's been, oddly enough, the involvement of Andrew Beck. Like, I mean, I'm not saying he's like the key, but it's just like, but it's just weird. Like, and one of the first plays of the game was a dart to Andrew Beck, and then you see Alberto Cuebanam, be involved in the offense, and we've truly got a chance to see, hey, I think that, it was just something that I think that we just kind of got shafted, I feel, of a duo between Alberto Cuebanam and Greg Dulcich as the season was progressing. And maybe it was drops, maybe it was the yips, and it was so much into his mental game where it just became, all the above at that point. But it was very clear that, I mean, you don't want to speculate, but I would, care to say that he was definitely in the doghouse by some people or multiple within that staff, because an interim coach does not just come in here and be like, okay, let's play Alberto Cuebanam. And granted, I mean, they were sort of forced to because of the fact that they put Dulcich on IR. But I mean, that's never stopped this previous coaching staff that was here of not playing Alberto. So
right, Dulcich had weeks where he wasn't playing, and Ray does reference in the comments, and I appreciate that. He did have the drops, but when you think about his overall potential and talent, and maybe the drops were because just he wasn't playing enough. I don't know. I mean, we had really high hopes. He was our starting tight end to start the season. We don't even think about that, and then the guy is a healthy scratch for double-digit weeks in a row. It's just very, very interesting. It's interesting the changes that Rosberg has made. Firing, Dwayne Stukes. Obviously, there's a personality conflict there. If you think about Stukes' first response about that, about Rosberg's role and if he's going to seek him out or listen to any advice, and he said, "No, I've got my own guy."
Yeah.
And the one thing with Ray's comment about dropping ball, like you look at it and it's like, well, Cortland Sutton struggled with some drops during the season. Jerry Jeudy struggled with drops during the season. KJ Hamler struggled with drops if we ever see him on the field. Like, why was it all of a sudden Alberto was just benched? Mm-hmm. There had to have been something else going on. It's got to be. I think that had him benched, because if you have other people struggling to catch balls that are thrown their way, why are you singling out Alberto for drops when you've got these potential all-star wide receivers that are struggling with drops?
Yeah. And Ray even mentions that he wasn't that good of a blocker either, and he wasn't. I mean, so it was a combination of everything. Like, he wasn't catching passes. He wasn't that great of a blocker. But it was interesting, when opportunities, arose where he should have been activated, he never was. Like he ended up getting the Michael Ojemudia treatment, and Michael Ojemudia is gone. And, but I mean, I will say it's just one game back. But I don't want to overreact too much, but, I'm almost tempted to just run it back and, and see what a competent, coaching staff would be, and see what it would be like with Alberto Cuebanam and Greg Dulcich, there as far as an offense. And we talked about Jerry Rosberg, his effect on this football team, and him being that no BS kind of guy, and and truly showing the support that he can for his teammates and his now that he's coaching them. We saw some emergence from players, that we thought were, out of it this entire season. Alberto Cuebanam being one of them, but this was a terrific game from Cortland Sutton. This was a great game by Sutton. Obviously there is the phantom pass interference penalty, but I think that, he clearly showed that he still has something there that you can work with. And, whether he is here for just 2023, there was at least enough there that he could be able to, show one more time for the Broncos that, hey, I am that guy, But yeah, everybody, to even what Jeffrey's saying, like everybody played angry, like everybody played pissed off. And I think that that's the thing when you have a no BS kind of coach like that, the players and the whole team around you will play pissed off. And we have never seen that at all at one point in the season.
Now let's go ahead and discuss the real reason why the Broncos lost that game. Referees. Holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could forgive you for the penalty, the pass interference you called on Sutton. I can forgive you for that one. It happens.
I don't know if I could.
I get it.
No.
But not throwing a flag on the body slam on Russ. Come on. Like there's two refs standing right there. Why are they not thrown? Did we ever get any explanation as to why a flag wasn't thrown?
No.
And that was just one of the penalties that happened on that play.
So,
yeah.
I disagree completely with this premise because I think the Cortland Sutton catch and penalty was absolute BS. And, you're going to have to like scroll big time because of all the outrage in the chat about the penalties. It's that changed the course of the game. Whether it meant we were going to win is that's so true.
I'm applying for a phonics class after this.
Oh, you got that right.
Yeah.
But that changed what I was saying is it changed the course of the game. We were leading at that point. We were then driving. Russ throws that pass. It was over 40 yards. Cortland was
beautiful
awesome
catch.
in that.
A huge third down conversion too.
Yeah, he was Cortland. I was so psyched for him. He was, that was his breakout game of the season. Having that play, you talk about playing angry when Russ threw that interception, and the Chief was running down the right sideline and then cut back in, and Cortland just absolutely tattooed him. I mean, it was great, but just getting back there. Hey, Betsy, just getting back to the refs, that hurt. I mean, they stole that game from the Broncos.
I don't think I can ever recall a game where you had obviously the pass interference on Cortland, which was on, like 3rd and 11, or it was a huge third down conversion, and it was a beautiful pass by Russ, by the way. But you had the pass interference, you had the defenseless receiver on Kendall Hinton, you had a potential body slam. I don't know if people notice this, but a potential body slam of Jerry Jeudy that wasn't even called.
Yep.
You had a potential body slam and offside, it looked like, on one play, where Chris Jones, body slammed Russ, and then, it's just, there was so much going on in that game that, you definitely do not want, to when you have a podcast like this, you never want to throw out blame, for the refs or anything like that, because you want to kind of call it as objectively as we can.
No,
but for something like this, it's something like this, I don't know how you can talk about a game like this and not reference how pathetic and bad that NFL officiating crew was. Like that's the kind of game where you truly wonder if that game was rigged. Like deep down, like you truly wonder if that game was rigged.
That might be a little strong, but I think there is some favoritism that goes, and that happens when you're winners. Like no one's going to give any breaks to the guys with four wins. So
and Ray said the key word accountability. Like there is none for refs. I mean, maybe they miss out on a game or they can't ref for this team anymore, but like there's no accountability for the refs. Like there's no fines. There's no you're going to miss a game or you're going to miss a paycheck because the union won't let it happen. But something has to change. I don't know whether it's allow coaches to challenge personal fouls or unnecessary roughness or something like that, so that they can, like, if there's like on the Cortland Sutton pass interference, you can throw a flag, have them review it, pick the flag up and take it away if there's no pass interference. Or
Right.
like
And
on the Russell Wilson slam, throw a flag, let them review it, and then they could throw the flag and do it that way. I don't know what the answer is, but something has to change.
Another thing too, Mike, is what's the difference between the refs and coaches and players? If a coach makes a mistake, he's standing in front answering questions and having to answer for his actions.
Yeah.
A player makes a mistake, he has to stand at a microphone and explain himself. Ref, they can hightail it out of there, get back in their suits, and then go back to their day job.
But if a player says something negative about a ref during an interview, the player gets fined.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, just to circle back, I wasn't actually saying it's rigged. It's just like one of those.
It's rigged.
No, well, yeah, but it just makes you wonder. But I think that, when you have those kinds of games like that, like, you were talking about, what do you do differently? I do know the NFL had been talking about maybe at the end of the season looking at, like reviewing roughing the passer penalties, but but the thing is, like, something like that where it happens to Russell Wilson or, really anybody, it makes you wonder if they should have a reviewable play like that, because, like, if they're not going to be able to get it right, accountability, which is something that was mentioned in this chat, is a big deal. So, yes, they were able to review pass interference penalties, and it was only there for like a year or 2 years, but, the thing is like those kinds of things were implemented in place to have a better system in place for calling pass interference penalties. And there were probably a lot of opportunities where it was a tricked system by the referees to still, on a pass interference penalty, still call pass interference, even though it was definitely not pass interference. But, like, if it takes doing it for one season for them to understand the flaws of their game, you absolutely have to consider it.
Yeah. Alex says, imagine if Jonathan Harris body slammed Mahomes.
Can you imagine?
He would have been ejected.
Oh, yeah. So let's get to the main point of the show. And I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. There's been lots to talk about. But it seems like there's more smoke to Jim Harbaugh coming to the NFL. Like, we've seen stories that people are confirming that are close to Harbaugh, that if he gets an NFL offer, he wants to move up to the NFL. Then we hear things about, like, well, he's worked with this coordinator before. He's worked with this coach before. He's worked with this coach before. Oh, it's a fit for Denver. I know that everybody does that every offseason.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it seems like there's more smoke than there was, because I thought that Jim Harbaugh was going to be on the same list as Sean Payton. Not going to happen. Like, you wish it would, but no chance. And now it seems like there's more of a chance that he could be the guy. And Denver's already contacted to Harbaugh's team for an interview whenever they're starting to do that.
So, a buddy of mine texted me yesterday and he asked me if they make orange khakis.
Yes.
So it's I'm getting more and more juiced about the Harbaugh possibility.
Yeah.
You look at what he did really everywhere he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
He took a one-win Stanford team and had them losing one game and winning the Orange Bowl. Then he goes and takes a team in San Francisco that had been in a playoff drought for 8 years, and in the 4 years that he was there, 3 of them he makes the NFC Championship, and he in turn ends up losing a Super Bowl that was one of the craziest ones with the power outage that looked like the Niners were going to win that. He lost to his brother, but the guy's a winner. He goes to Michigan. They were in the doldrums too, and they had Brady Hoke, like not even wearing a headset on the sideline. And he's taken them to the playoffs and beaten Ohio State handily the last 2 years. I'm excited about this, and this buyout's only $3 million. You don't have to give up draft picks for this guy.
And I think the thing that is fascinating about Harbaugh with his tenure at Michigan was he also had been down in the doldrums with Michigan, because there were a lot of times where people were even wondering, is he even going to stay with Michigan? Not for the sake of him jumping to the NFL, but like, is he the right man for the job? And now you're starting to see it bear fruit over the course of, many years, and now getting the Ohio State monkey off of his back and beating him, as you said, Glenn, handily, and then going to the college football playoffs in back-to-back years, obviously losing, but, and I think the thing that's also appealing, like let's just say for Broncos fans, he resurrected Alex Smith. I mean, he resurrected Alex Smith when he was with the 49ers and turned that team into basically what it is now with Kyle Shanahan, to where they're not missing a single beat. And I think that that's the thing that is also very, very appealing if you're a Broncos fan, is this idea that if Harbaugh is going to come in, ironically, it's going to end up being at the quarterback that ended up being, part of his nemesis, which was the Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson. But, having the ability to basically, revitalize him as a quarterback and, make him exactly who he needs to be for this franchise. And so, but also I think that it's not just about Russell Wilson. It's about looking to the future. And I think that that's where we have to look at his time in Michigan, because it's like, here's the case where, he resurrected basically a program when he was even there. So it's just hit the idea of Harbaugh, being there and being this detailed oriented guy is something that I think that this team absolutely needs.
Well, and Ray kind of brings this up where I talked about Dan Quinn and Brian Schottenheimer. So my question is, we know that ownership is pretty high on Harbaugh because that's the first guy they went after, right? We all know the stories came out that Harbaugh was their target, right? So if Harbaugh ends up coming to Denver, is he a good fit with Russ? Does he run a defense like ours where Evero can stay and where the players that we already have stay? Like, how good of a fit is Harbaugh with what we already have?
So Evero was on his staff with the Niners. So there's that history there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Broncos are going to run an offense that works to Russell's strength. And we even saw plays this past weekend that did exactly that. A lot of running. The line was a little weak at a lot of times throughout that. But I mean, how about Harbaugh, Schottenheimer, Evero, and Rosberg as the coordinators?
Well, I mean,
I just don't know if Schottenheimer would fit with Harbaugh. That's what I'm trying to figure out is like if Harbaugh comes to Denver, who would the OC be? Like we know that he had, he took the Niners to the Super Bowl with Kaepernick. When he was losing, he ran back and turned the lights off, and then we had that whole thing. But would it be the same style of system? Because Kaepernick and Russ kind of play quarterback the same, not really, but a little bit.
I think the thing that's appealing when you have Harbaugh on the staff, and especially with what he's been able to orchestrate at Michigan and having Evero on the staff, is you have the capability to basically turn the Denver Broncos into an NFC West juggernaut that had been, which is, you run the football, you play solid defense, and which has been at one moment in time, like something that was big for the Seahawks. Like, when the defense was kind of like being the main focal point, like, I mean, at that point, like, the shoulders were off of Russ, and we saw, a little bit more of Russ than what we had seen. As far as people on the staff, I know that there's probably a few candidates that, maybe aren't necessarily, names that maybe people have thought of. And I've thrown this out there as far as one name, and that's David Shaw. I mean, David Shaw was his offensive coordinator, I want to say at Stanford. And that, by the way, there's another case, where he leaves Stanford and to go with the hands of David Shaw. And David Shaw, basically takes what was already created by Harbaugh to where it was before he resigned this year. Another guy is a name that, frankly, I've not heard a lot as far as that, and that is Pep Hamilton. I think Pep Hamilton is another guy as either a QB coach, offensive coordinator, I would say, maybe offensive coordinator, because Hamilton is another guy that I think was also on that Stanford staff, or just as far as connections to Harbaugh that I think are very tempting. And so if you have the ability to, bring in Pep Hamilton, you also have the ability that maybe he can work with Russ, and Pep Hamilton has had some experience of working with some younger quarterbacks. And so if you're going to be bringing on Harbaugh to, say, a big money contract, there's the propensity and possibility that, they're also going to be wanting his quarterback in the future. So, there's at least that possibility with Pep Hamilton.
So his OC for San Francisco was Greg Roman, and his DC was Vic Fangio.
Greg Roman. Interesting. Okay. Greg Roman's. Wow. Okay. Greg Roman. Not having Boggins on the show anymore, or at least for a little bit, I don't have to pull these comments up anymore. We can just completely.
There's got to be a Get Roman comment in here. Anyway, never mind.
Right? All right.
I'll explain later.
All right. So going into the Chargers game, I keep wanting to dig into the game that we're going to play, but we keep seeing different things every week. So I'm never sure what's going to happen. There were 2 weeks where it was oh, that's pretty cool. And now we just saw Outen call the games or call the plays. And then it was what are we going to see on Sunday? What's next? What can we possibly change?
They're going to see who best fits Rosberg, and they're going to go with the ball boy as the offensive coordinator. I don't know. I'm joking. No, they'll probably roll with Outen again. For what we had seen. They'll probably roll with Outen again with probably the exact same way they did it at Kansas City. So Outen up in the booth, and then Clint Kubiak down there, on the field with Russ. So we'll probably see that. It seemed to work, and I don't necessarily see them breaking that.
I'm sure not.
No.
And the reason that Rosberg gave for Kubiak being on the sideline and not calling the plays from up top was the relationship that he has with Russ. Mm-hmm. So
I love how we were all we want Kubiak to call the plays, screw Outen, and now we're ooh, keep Outen in the booth. Let's put Kubiak on the field.
We're just so desperate. You know what I would really like to see on Sunday is a good crowd. I'm hoping that after this change was made, the 18,000 fans that bought tickets but chose not to go in protest show up for the final game after seeing the effort that the Broncos put forth last week. And it would be a hopeful finish if the Broncos can beat the Chargers at home in the final game and go into the offseason with some positivity.
I can definitely tell you that myself and my dad will be one of two people there in person for that game. So I can at least tell you that part. I can't make any guarantees for the other, thousands of fans at the stadium. So
yeah.
So Jeffrey Bryan asks, what do you think of the possibility that Manning comes in an advisory role and pushes for Jim Caldwell? I think at this point, can we rule Manning out of any front office role? Or no. I could see him as part owner, but I don't see him as a senior advisor or a QB coach or a scout or anything that has to do with having an office in the building other than an owner. I can't really see Manning leaving what he's doing now.
I'm not ruling anything out.
I just think he's got a really cool life right now. He's building Omaha Productions. They've got other shows, other things happening. They have the McAfee experience with the college football now, in addition to what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think he's probably happy to take any phone calls and talk to anybody and give some advice. But I don't think he really wants to be somebody that at this point, is in the office every day.
Yeah.
He got to shoot down to Florida and watch the Tennessee bowl game the other day. He's just all over the place. And I'd be shocked if he would drop all of that
to go sit in an office.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like maybe like a minority owner where he still has a part of the team, but he can go do what he wants. I just don't see him hanging out in an office all day. Like that's.
But the thing is, like, I mean, we definitely think we know his intentions and the fact of like what he's done in the past, as far as no, but as far as like pulling his names from like like so that's what we're going off of. I will say though, the fact that he's still, to use the Von Miller analogy, because he's continuing to use the Broncos as there's always that possibility of what can be about Manning, with the front office. We know he loves the game. We know that he, loves the Denver Broncos. He loves being a part of Denver, Colorado. And I think that, I wouldn't rule it out. And especially
Manning doesn't fly Southwest, that's for sure.
Well, and Alex also said there's only room for one quarterback in office in Dove Valley. So I mean,
well, we know he doesn't because he made it down to his destination.
But no, I just think that with the owners that we have, I don't think you can rule anything out. Not saying it's going to happen, but I'm just saying like you can't really rule anything out.
Not Mr. Boggins says, how much you guys willing to pay Harbaugh? Shoot, I've got 2 cars, a house, a wife and 6 kids. You can have it all. Just come on down to Denver.
I mean, I'd just say blank check. Just say blank check. You offer him whatever it is that he wants. I mean, I know that
does money really matter at this point, though? I mean, obviously,
yes,
salary cap wise, but like
got a pay cut.
You could guarantee him anything, cash wise, with the owners that we have.
Right. He was given they took money from him at Michigan, and if you think about how serious he's about getting back to the NFL, he had an interview with the Minnesota Vikings on signing day last year. Like, this is a guy who was pissed about the Vikings. He was pissed about the Raiders not giving him a job. He is itching to get back. Did a great job this season. Is the thing that you hear most about his personality is that he's a little hard to get along with at times. Yes, but who's the most successful coach of all time? Like, he's right down the street from where I live, and he's no bed of roses.
You guys want one word answers?
He doesn't seem like he's a very nice person.
No. Yeah, well, it's funny. Of all the Harbaugh tidbits that I've heard about him taking a leap to the NFL, Glenn, you bringing up again the fact that he interviewed for the Minnesota Vikings job on National Signing Day. I think that like that needs to be like so like for anybody that lives under rock, National Signing Day is like the day for recruits for college football. And the fact that a head coach is not a part of that and being interviewed for a future job in the NFL, and I would say tells you enough about him strongly considering taking that leap to the NFL. As far as the deal, I said I would give him a blank check, and I would give him whatever it is that he wants. And I know that it was leaked today by Colin Cowherd. That was the what was it, the $20 million a year for Harbaugh. And then upwards, for maybe even 25 for Sean Payton. Money is not an object for these guys. Money is not an object for, this ownership group. They're going to just give Harbaugh whatever it is that he wants. And frankly, if it ends up being a bidding war, we saw in the ownership for sure, no one's going to stand a chance. Like, no one's going to stand a chance as far as, competing with this team. So if it's between Indianapolis, Carolina, and Denver, I will say I will take Denver's chances of landing Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, or, maybe another big name coach. Because I think the thing that I'm trying to struggle with is, there's the Dan Quinn stuff that's been leaked, and maybe Frank Reich, or not Frank Reich.
Whoa.
Did you say that right?
I
was waiting for it.
Yeah. But I think the thing that's just in the back of my mind is, well, if you're swinging big and it's being leaked, that they're offering these kinds of deals to Peyton and Harbaugh. I wonder what's the next big name coach? What's the next big name coach that they might actually go out and get? Like, I know that Breer was maybe subtly joking, but I mean, he said Nick Saban, like, Bill Belichick, like, so I mean, like, it makes you wonder.
So KB mentioned Brian Flores, who is a great coach, but he's involved with the litigation, and the Broncos are defendants in that. So I don't see that as being a possibility. But Boggins, if you want to comment, how would you think Harbaugh as a running as a coach that loves the running game would do with Bijan?
He's just throwing names like Kevin James.
Well,
Vincent
Kevin James,
Hardy,
remember Kevin James
Sean
played.
Payton, yeah.
They look so much alike. I mean, especially when he was zipping around on the Segway.
There you go. Let's steal Mike Tomlin.
Oh, I'm in.
I'd be so in.
Okay, God, so who is your ideal fit for the Broncos coach? Anybody?
I will say Harbaugh, just because like he's my number one choice. I think that he's the big fish for me, and I think his corniness and Russ's corniness. Hey, I think they can be able to make it work. So. Plus, like, again, like there's so many connections that you can't ignore it. Like, you cannot ignore the kind of connections that's there with the Broncos versus any other team.
I'm sorry, I'm just reading Mark's comment.
Alan Schwartz loves Harbaugh.
Mike, can you pull up Jeff Bryan's comment, because that would be an interesting option.
I'd go after Vrabel if he decides to jump ship. Is Vrabel going to jump ship?
I don't know about jumping ship, but could they make a coaching change if they lose to the Jacksonville?
So here's a question: if you are, let's say you have a head coach opening on your team, right? Can you talk to another team's head coach and offer them more money to move over? Or is that tampering?
That would be tampering.
I would say
I didn't know if tampering went head coach to head coach.
I would say maybe unless they're like eliminated from the playoffs and the season is done, then maybe. But but I don't know. I again, like, we would be in a whole new world at that point. So
I don't know. Like, I keep seeing all the things about Jim Harbaugh. I still like Dan Quinn. I don't know.
Imagine settling for Dan Quinn.
Settling? We didn't settle for Dan Quinn. We went with Nathaniel Hackett. Look how that turned out, Cam.
I'm just saying, we're talking about Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton, and even according to this chat, Mike Tomlin, Mike Vrabel, and you want Dan Quinn.
Vince Lombardi. I saw Vince Lombardi in there.
Mine's a little bit more attainable than Mike Tomlin.
Oh well, of course, yeah, of course. I mean, these are like dreams of the guys that could happen next week, if possible. I would say Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
We need that grit. I mean, if Rosberg has shown us something, a guy who is fiery, is experienced, has been on good, has been on good coaching staffs. We this team needs that.
I am a fan of comfort food. I'm just throwing that out there.
By the way, I also
Arby's
don't know.
Comfort food.
Curly fries are. The curly fries are. I will say, I don't know if you guys saw just before we went live, Cliff had shared an article about it. I think it was a mailbag, but he said that the expected start of interviews, it seems like, would be next week. So starting Monday. And so we'll see. I know that it was broke today that the Carolina Panthers contacted Harbaugh, which is another case about maybe him leaving, by the way. But yeah, if the Panthers are starting to kind of gauge interest and see what's there, then I would imagine we'll get a lot more clarity, with Harbaugh and Peyton and whoever else next week.
Cool. I think that's going to about do it for the show today. We got really not a whole lot else to talk about. So I want to thank everybody that joined us in the chat. And the chat was booming. It was a great chat. I appreciate it. Make sure you check out all the other shows we got on the network. We got shows Monday, the Cluster Puck, Tuesday, 5280, Wednesday's Wild Wild West. Friday is what is that? Oh, yeah, Broncos Breakdown with Bronco Bill. And then starting this week, Saturday is going to be the neighborhood for the Avalanche, where Bill and myself are going to be doing Avalanche games, live stream reactions. We also have the last neighborhood for the Broncos on Sunday, so make sure you check that out too. We had a great time. Even without Mr. Boggins, we still had a great time.
That's not Mr. Boggins, right? Right? Because this is probably a troll.
We didn't. We keep getting better. Ha ha ha. We'll talk to you guys later. Go Broncos. Bye bye bye.